Well, I don't know how many this has been, but this is Bronx Hospitality, right? It's a show about hospitality, and I have two really great guests with me today. Two people that are very dear. I got my best friend, Brad Beam.
How's it going?
Hi, Brad.
What's up, buddy?
He's my partner in Bronx House Pizza. Brad and I have been very close friends for quite a few years, and it's actually, again, I say this about Benici a lot, but you and I have gotten closer since we've become partners.
Yeah, for sure.
It's uncanny.
Yeah.
And then I got this great guy in hospitality, a guy that started his journey in hospitality in the mid 60s. My dad, Pete DeFabio. My dad, when did you move back to Italy, Dad?
let's see, no, 2012.
So yeah, so he's been back there for a minute. My dad moved back to Italy. He built this great house in our hometown, and not a lot of people know this, but you're Italian American.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brad Beam
Yeah.
is probably just as much Italian as I am.
Yeah.
His mom's name is Antonia
Yeah. Antonia Louise Noviello.
Noviello,
Novello.
Yeah.
and yeah, Brad's family's from Naples.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's nice.
the
Beautiful area.
the
Yeah.
birthplace of pizza, oddly enough,
Yeah. Yeah.
for you to be,
Ironically.
yeah, such an accomplished
Yeah.
pizza maker,
Thank you.
running probably the busiest pizzeria, one of the busiest pizzerias in probably in the state of Florida, I would
Yeah,
think.
I would say so.
And you do so. You make it look very easy.
Thank you. I'll
But
try.
yeah, how long have you been in hospitality? When did you? I mean, I'm sure you
14.
14 years.
14 years old.
Oh, since you were
Yeah.
14.
First job.
Yeah, so it's a typical thing. Like
Yeah.
you probably just like instead of like getting dropped off at Home Depot, you got dropped off at a restaurant. And
Yeah,
you're
I
like,
worked at
okay.
the Italian American Club.
Oh, is that
here in
right?
Palm Coast. Yeah, I was born and raised in Palm Coast, one of the very few.
Oh, no way. It
Yep.
was it was so it was like the wilderness out here, right?
Yeah,
Like it was
yeah.
there's
Palm
nothing
Coast was
going
known
on.
for being just like where they would send people on witness protection because there was nobody here. It wasn't on the map. It wasn't, where it was. My parents moved down here from Pennsylvania. My dad got a job with ITT, who was like one
Oh,
of the
that's
main
right.
starters
Yeah.
in Palm Coast. His office was actually right
Your
across the
dad's a
street.
legend. I
Yeah.
mean, I've heard a lot of stories. I
Yeah.
don't know if, I mean, he's kind of like your dad and my dad are probably pretty similar
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
But so wait, so I would say that the start of my career in hospitality was sort of could be compared to indentured servitude.
Hmm.
Like I was thrown in the kitchen,
Yeah.
working 14-hour days, making $25 a day,
Hmm.
and I actually would get my ass kicked, and not like actually get my ass kicked. Like the chef
Like
would
physically
kick me
beating.
in
Yeah.
the ass,
Yeah.
and but it's kind of how I learned.
It was all different
Each
time back then too.
yeah, it was. So
You do
what?
that now, you're going right to prison. But
I mean,
it's not.
but what was it like? What was it? I mean, did you have a similar
It
experience?
was it was the same thing. So I was 14. I got a job as a dishwasher at the Italian American Club, and it was funny because it was like from what I remember, it was like I got a paycheck once a month. Like we didn't get paid every week or every 2 weeks. It was once a month. And that paycheck would be like, 100, $200. But at 14, I was like, man,
Oh,
I'm rolling in the dough.
all
I
at
got,
once,
yeah.
it seems like a lot
Yeah,
of money.
exactly.
Yeah, but you were making like $3 an hour.
Yeah. 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 I was dishwasher. I was working. I mean, they would close at like 9, 10 o'clock, and I was there till like 11 or 12 at 14. But
That's just the way it was. How
yeah.
would you? I mean, what your parents would pick you up, or you'd ride your bike back
No,
home?
no, like my mom would come pick
Oh,
me up,
okay,
or my dad
okay.
would come pick me up. But I mean, our parents, my grandparents being, Italian, it was just in our blood.
Yeah, of course.
And instead of riding skateboards, we were learning how to make meatballs in the house, and pasta. So it's like it was in my blood, it was in my family's blood. But the same thing. I was working with all grown men around me, and they started showing me here and there. They'd show me how to cook and things like that. But anything too crazy at the time. But that's where I started. I've just always been in the restaurant business since then. So
Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah,
yeah.
I guess sort of the same thing for me. I when I really started working like on a daily basis, I worked in Manhattan
Hmm.
in one of those old um, historic buildings that was infested with rats.
Mhm.
And I know that sounds funny, right? But it's true. The rat problem in New York City,
Yeah.
it'll never be eradicated.
No.
And
No.
the powers that be say, listen, rats aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna have to deal with
Yeah.
them. So there was a basement, and I remember we had a locker room in the basement. Thank God it was pretty close to the stairwell, so it wasn't too deep into the basement. And we'd go down there and we would change out of our street clothes into our kitchen whites and stuff like that, and, get our day going. There was a walk-in freezer deep in the catacombs, so to speak, of this basement, and nobody wanted to go there. Like, the distributors didn't want to go there because it was like rat central,
Yeah.
like rat central. And usually, when you go down there, um, you know, I would, if I had to go down there, which I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
Like, the chef would say to me, "Hey, I need you to go down and get the little neck clams out of the freezer," and I would answer him like as if I was answering a different question, and he would look at me confused, and I would dip. I would get out of there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And hence, like, I would find like the back of a wooden spoon to my head or a boot to my butt, and I would go down there. So when I would go down there, I would make a lot of noise on my way down there. Like, I would rattle and bang on the pantry. Yeah, just to hey guys, I'm coming down here. Like, and they would scurry, and you would see them.
Yeah.
You would see them. So I would go to it was a green door, and it had this really like giant mechanism that you could hear. Like, you could just slam it shut, and you would know that it was shut. Like, you wouldn't have to go check. You could hear it click.
Yeah.
And I would take a deep breath, and I would throw open the door and grab whatever I had to get, and I would start running as the door was swinging shut. And I would only know that it was okay to continue on my way when I heard the mechanism click. And then that's the way it was.
Yeah.
That
That's
was
great.
New York City
Yeah.
back in the day, So, gosh, I remember we would for our linguine clam sauce, we would keep what's the big clam called? Topstone or cherry stone?
Cherry stone.
Cherry stones. And so we would put them in the freezer only for about 4 or 5 hours, maybe 4 hours, just so they would buckle a little bit,
Yeah.
and it made it easier to open.
Yeah.
So then we would shuck these clams. Like, that's a good secret.
Yeah.
Instead of you trying to like forcefully like open a live clam, like, they would still kind of be live, but
And it'll be much tender too.
More
when
tender
you do
too?
That yes, because if you do it in hot water, it becomes really hard.
you're kind of cooking it almost if it's
Yeah.
in hot
Yeah.
water. But we would shuck them over like a big stainless steel bowl and trap the juices. And cherry stones are giant.
Yeah.
But we would chop them.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, cherry stones are better than. Like, I hate when you get a linguine clam sauce at a restaurant and they serve the
Oh,
half
yeah.
shell.
Yeah.
It's just there's no meat
No,
on it.
no.
You know what I mean?
And the cherry stone, it could be. See, we used to use that to stuff clams.
Oh, like a baked clam or something
right,
like that.
and we used to use it for like a linguine with white or red clam
Yeah.
sauce.
I don't
But-
see it really used anymore. I like it
no,
like
we
that.
don't use it anymore because it's becoming really tough and very expensive. You're better off with those little necks that.
Yeah, I don't know. The cherry stones I kind of still kind of dig, but yeah, that's kind of like my entrance into the culinary scene was.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, even with me, even moving forward, I was, working at a couple places, learning how to cook, learning how to, prep things like that, but never even started the pizza journey until I was working at Joe's for Mike and Joey. And it's funny because that just came about. The pizza part of it just came about. The cooking I loved. I always enjoyed that.
You were in
but-
front of the house too a little bit.
Yeah, so I started at Joe's it'll be 21 years ago this year, but
Wow.
21 years ago I started at Joe's. I was a delivery driver first. One of my buddies worked there as a driver. He was like, "Oh, we need help, come over here." So I said, "Okay." So I was working there, hit it off with Mike and Joe, and
Wait, what year was that? 2004.
yeah.
So
what
we
happened,
have
man.
we have a saying around like Mike and I are
Mhm.
brothers, but So 2005, Mike
Yeah.
was insane. Like
Yeah, I
Mike
worked
was
for that
crazy.
Mike.
That's a different Mike than we
It
have
is,
today,
it is, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Mike's been on an incredible journey,
Yeah.
and so you got to work with 2005 Mike.
Yeah, so
So
when I started there, I was a delivery driver, and then Mike just liked my personality. He was like, "I got to get you to the front of the house. You got to be a server. You know, I like your
nice.
personality." So I said, "Okay." So started serving, and I used to always, Mike was always working front of the house. He would make
Yeah,
pies on Joey's day off, but Mike loved front of the house. He loved talking to customers. Joey was the pie guy, so
yeah.
I would always watch Joe in the back. I'd watch him make pizzas. I was always fascinated by the technique and everything of just making pizza. And I would watch him, man, and just study how he did it. And it was a Friday night, and his slap out guy didn't show up, and he was
Oh,
by himself. So he's going to town, and I was serving. I said, "Joe, you need a hand?" He's like, "You've never done this. You've never
oh,
done this." But I said, "I've watched you a million times. I could try." He goes, "All
oh
right."
my God! It
So,
sounds like a
so, so
disaster.
I take a dough out, I form one crust on it, I pass it down. He looks at it and he yells to Lisa, and he goes, "You guys are taking his tables. He's back here with me." And he's like, "Just start doing that." And that's literally how I
Wow,
started. I
that's
just
pretty
started
cool.
grabbing dough and just started stretching it from that night, and then slowly started learning how to make pies. Yeah, and then that's how I started the journey with pizzas. And yeah, so 2005, Mike. I mean, Mike. I remember he had a Ford F-150, like an older one that was like his work truck,
Yeah.
and we would see that thing fly around the corner, and everybody
Oh
would go,
no,
"Sharks here, sharks here," and
sharks
everybody would
here.
scramble like fish to try to start cleaning something, cleaning the
Oh
headboards,
my God.
footboards, everything. But yeah, dude, Mike's come very far in his
Yeah,
journey,
Mike's
and
amazing.
yeah,
He's an
he's the
amazing
best.
dude.
So
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty good. And Joey, God rest his soul,
mm,
um, he used to make pizza in his boxers. Like he
yeah,
was, he's
yeah,
pretty crazy
yeah.
himself. But um, so my dad worked on West 72nd Street between Broadway and Central Park West, I think.
No, Broadway and Columbus Avenue.
Broadway and Columbus. Broadway and Columbus. Okay. And my dad worked, so think of it like the 60s, like my dad was this good-looking guy, and I think I mean, although you're amazing in the kitchen, I think you were front of the house, right?
I mostly in front of the house. But when I got started, I was about 12 years old, and that was right after the war, and there was no work, no money, no food, no nothing. So if
Mm,
you're 12 years old, you go with your
Typical
tornado.
typical stuff. So yeah, so
Yeah.
a family friend, so to speak, took my
Yeah.
dad to Naples.
yeah,
And then you start to wash dishes, and you learn a little at a time.
yeah.
Then, like, you move. I moved like from Naples to Milan. It's a whole different region, a different cooking, different method of
Pretty cool stuff.
so.
But
And
dad,
yeah,
I want to know, back when you were in New York City,
yes,
front of the house,
yeah,
do you remember serving any famous people?
yes.
Who would that have been?
Well, those days were tough. What's her name? Diana Ross.
Hmm,
Oh yeah, that's
that's
right.
cool.
I think
Uh,
Diana Ross had a crush on my dad. 'Cause I think I heard this story before. So
uh,
my dad kind of looked like Rudolph Valentino,
Okay.
like, and everybody had this affinity to Italian Americans.
Hmm.
My dad probably got himself in a little bit of trouble. Which can happen in hospitality.
yes,
You probably got yourself in a little bit of trouble
a little bit.
with Diana Ross in particular.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, no, and you know who else used to come there?
Oh,
I forgot her name now. Paul Newman's wife.
oh, wow.
Hmm,
Yeah, and
interesting.
Very.
she would go to her psychiatrist, and then she come and have a few drinks
Okay.
at the bar.
So you were sort of
Uh,
like her psychiatrist too, I'm sure.
Nice way to finish the psychiatrist meeting. Go have some drinks.
Have a couple of Manhattans or
Exactly.
whatever it was back then. Yeah, I think the drink of choice back then was the gin Ricky. Do you remember the gin Ricky?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a big. That was a
And
big.
then I had some people probably don't even remember this. Chico Vijar, an ex-fighter.
Oh, wait a
Uh,
minute. What about the tall Italian guy you told me? Primo Canera.
Primo Carnera.
Wow.
Wow, Primo Carnera. He used to come into the restaurants,
This
He
guy was
was
like, he was probably like 6'5".
huge. He sat in the boot like he had to go sideways.
Oh,
like this.
really?
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
usually. So he made a lot of money when he was young. Then at the end of his life, he was totally broke. He used to come into the restaurant, and after a while, he didn't even have to ask. We would make him a dish of pasta with a lot of sauce and a big basket of bread.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And he would eat the bread and sauce.
You wouldn't charge him.
No, which but those days
Oh, it was
a
like
dish
$2.
of pasta was like $1.75.
But still, that was probably a lot of
Wow.
money.
Yeah.
So, Dad, so without, be careful how you answer this.
Yeah.
But I know this to be true because it was late 60s, early 70s. What I find interesting anyway is I know you guys had like a private dining room or something, and
Yes.
I remember hearing that the who's who would come into that restaurant for
Yes.
meetings, meaning maybe quite possibly mob figures would come in,
Yes.
and then without you saying too much, there'd be a meeting, right? And then the next day, like you got your news by you'd walking by the subway station, and there was the Daily News and the New York Post,
Yeah.
and I remember hearing like there'd be like a meeting of sorts, and then the next day in the Daily News there'd be like something happen, like
Something
huge,
really-
they'd find somebody like dead, shot in the street or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And they were very careful. I was the only one with a back room, and we had almost like a door, one of those accordion doors.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the only one permitted to walk in and serve. If anybody else would come, they would get very upset.
Yeah, they trusted you.
Yeah. Well, yes,
Yeah.
and that was a great thing for me because at at the time I was making like 6 days a week, $45 a week.
Yeah.
And when those guys came in and I served them, I get $100 tip.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
I was
Yeah.
hysterical.
That's
Right,
pretty
that's a
cool.
lot of money.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
almost 2-3 weeks salary. It's
Yeah.
pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brad, it's some of the things that we deal with as owners of the in the restaurant business make us sort of shake our head. There's like a real cast of characters that we deal
Oh, yeah.
with, like oh man, I don't even know if we should say, but like the guys that assist us with plumbing work
Oh, yeah.
and things like that. Like,
Yeah, no, it's true.
I mean, people don't get it, but like, especially in this area of Florida, like, you can't just jump on the phone and call a plumber and expect the plumber to like answer, an electrician to answer. Like, in the restaurant business, you need things done
Yeah.
immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
immediately.
You
Like,
wanna rip
otherwise
your
we're
hair
shut down.
out, and they don't get it. They don't understand it when you're calling them and you're saying, I got an issue with my hot water heater. I got no hot water in the restaurant. You need hot water.
Yeah,
you need hot
that's
water for
essentially
everything.
closing us down.
Yeah, and they're
Yeah.
like, all right, well, we should have somebody out in the next couple of days. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. Somebody needs to be out right away.
So
Yeah.
so you develop relationships with people.
Mhm.
Like, let's just say, I don't want the nickname that we have is just kind of a funny nickname for the guys that you call, let's just say.
Yeah.
But I remember I was working with you one day. I'm sitting at the bar. It's towards the end of the night, and there was just the urinal was running. And
Yeah.
and one of your guys was like, "Oh no, I got this. I got this." Goes in there with a wrench or something,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden I heard like what I would say I would equate it to the Niagara Falls. Like,
Yeah.
I walked in there and it was Niagara Falls in the
Yeah.
bathroom.
just water just spraying out of a pipe.
I looked at you, you looked at me, and I find it disturbing almost that there was no panic in your eye, because like, well, what else is gonna happen
Yeah,
now?
yeah.
It's like, like anybody else that would see something like that would shit.
Yeah.
Like,
and I'm
like,
pretty sure you and I actually just started laughing.
Yeah.
Because it's like we've seen so much that you're just like,
what else
what
now?
else?
Yeah, like
Nothing surprises us at this point.
So like the trials and tribulations. So I think how did that resolve? Was that resolved that evening instead of like you calling an emergency
Yeah,
number on a plumber?
yeah,
That
yeah. That was resolved that evening. Just a little trial and error myself, and finally got it fixed. But even the other day when we redid the floors, it's like Mike calls and he said, "Hey, do we need to get so and so down here?"
oh
And I said, "Don't even worry about it. We don't
no,
have time
well
to wait."
yeah, and those guys are a little shaky
Yeah,
themselves. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh
So
my god, I hope they don't watch this thing. But yeah, I don't know.
let me ask you, bro,
Yes,
because
sir.
I don't even, so you were saying how you
Yes,
started in
sir.
the industry. So obviously you started, and you started as a chef, not a pizza guy.
No, well,
When did you start into pizza?
so pizza, I guess the first pizza that I ever made for public consumption, oh my gosh, was probably in at the Jersey Shore. So as a teenager, I worked some summers at the Jersey Shore,
Mhm.
Seaside Heights, New Jersey, between Lincoln and DuPont. I actually worked for I worked for a great guy, um, maybe about 10 years younger than me, like a guy that I can't mention his name because he has a little bit of a history with with the law, I guess.
Mhm.
But great guy, like I wanted to be him. Like 10 years older than me, good looking guy, great physique, made a lot of money, got all the girls and stuff like that. And he sort of mentored me, kind of took me under his wing, and yeah, I would say because I was cooking. By the time I was 16, I was lead saute at the biggest
Yeah.
biggest restaurant on the west side of Manhattan. Right. So in all honesty, we didn't serve pizza there. So when
That was Tony's, right?
yeah, Tony's Italian Kitchen, yeah.
Yeah.
So I did. So I worked at the Jersey Shore, and I worked for this guy that had restaurants in the city, and he's like, you got to come out to the shore. You need to run this pizza restaurant for me. And yeah, so I kind of picked it up kind of quick, and I was pretty confident in my ability in the kitchen for sauces and dressings and sautéing things,
Mhm.
and I think I had a pretty good base. But pizza kind of came natural, and I just luckily I was taught good technique,
Mhm.
and again, God, eh, Brad, I've had plenty of ups and downs in
Mhm.
my life, and remarkable ups, and also remarkably low time.
Mhm.
And I really have to say, God, throughout my journey in life, God really, He never gave me too much as to where I would quit or give up. But He did give me some doozies. But He also
Mhm.
looked out for me. So what I'm referring to is I opened my first pizzeria in Scarsdale, New York, for $13,000. It was a dilapidated, closed shithole pizzeria,
Mhm.
and it was a block away from probably the busiest pizza restaurant in Westchester County, Italian Village. And I knew, like I was gonna mention before to my dad, I think like service is equally important as to quality of
Yeah,
food.
of
And I,
course.
I I remember going into this place, Italian Village, when I was thinking about. I bought this restaurant when I was 24. I was a year out of Stony Brook University, and I went to Italian Village, and I saw these guys. The way they were working, it was busy, but guys were just like, "Yo, who's next? Who's next?" Like real meatheads,
Mhm.
and treating everybody with indifference. You know, and there's some nuances. When you see a woman, she's with her baby carriage, and there's a certain way to treat a woman.
Of
Like
course.
you and I would say we're kind of psychologists, not
Yeah.
only with dealing with our employees and dealing with people that need to help us in the industry and things like that, but also when you're dealing with customers. You have
Yeah.
you have high maintenance customers and
Mhm.
customers that need very very little low profile
Of
maintenance.
course.
But so when I saw that, I was like, wow, I found a niche here. I
Mhm.
know I have a terrible location, but if I try and if I answer every phone call and if I am super engaging with every single customer, it really would spread like
Mhm.
wildfire. And to make a long story short, Amore Pizza, Scarsdale, New York, I started it in 1993. We slayed the giant. We
Mhm.
we 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 uh we surpassed Italian Village
Yeah.
in sales and in everything else, and we got either best pizza in Westchester County, which is a big deal, or second best to Sal's Pizzeria. Sal's in Mamaroneck is just like the most incredible pizza restaurant ever. But yeah, I guess that's the foray or
It's so
whatever.
true what you're saying though with like the hospitality part of it because I've always been, for many years. I mean, we learn every day. I feel like you can never stop learning. Obviously, if you feel like you've learned everything, then you fail in my eyes. So it's like, but
Hmm.
when it comes to the culinary pizza side of it, I'm confident in it. But I'm still learning every day. But the part once we became partners, I became partners with you and Mike. The part that was new to me was that hospitality part of it. I knew how to interact with people. I was just one of those people. I have, my mom's personality when it comes to that of
Yeah.
being able to chat with people and talk. My parents used to say you could make friends with a light post. It doesn't matter. I was able to have conversations, but that hospitality in the restaurant part was something that you taught me, Mike taught me, and I was able to watch you guys and learn from it. But it's so true because I think back of myself of going to restaurants before that I loved the food and had horrible service
Oof.
and stopped going for a
Yeah.
while because of that, and because at the end of the day you always want to bat a perfect game, but you're
Yeah.
not always going to in the kitchen. So the service is, and I try to explain that to all of our employees, is that service can make up for that, that little bit of extra time that we need on pizza side that night because we're busy, or a little bit of time that we need on kitchen. If you're able to mingle with those people, you're
Yeah.
able to allow them to have that good experience, they're going to forget about those little mistakes here and there.
Yeah.
They're not going to care
Mhm.
about that because what they're coming for, and you taught me out, what they're coming for is they're coming for an experience. They're coming to be able to enjoy themselves. You don't know what people are doing on their 9 to 5s. You don't know what their day consisted of. They could have had the worst day in the world. They show up to have dinner. They just want to relax, enjoy themselves, and enjoy dinner. They
I
don't want to be stressed out.
I feel like we're cognizant of that,
We are.
but I do feel like the other day I was working in St. Augustine at our new restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a full moon out.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something, buddy.
That's when they come
The
out.
cuckoos
Oh,
were
no,
out
it's true.
in a bunch.
It's
And
true.
dude, there were so many crazy people, and you
Mm-hmm.
could tell, like you can't please anyone.
Mm-mm.
People are asking for, can I get half a Sicilian and half a thin crust pie? And I'm like, wait, what did you just say? And like just some of the crazy requests that we get,
Mm-hmm.
or some of the things that people try to get away with.
Oh, yeah.
And you know me, I'm just like, waitress comes back, I'm like, no, just take it off the check.
Yeah.
It's not worth arguing
No,
at
no.
some points, right?
No, it's true.
But there are people out there that need help, man.
Yeah.
And
They
it's
really
and
are.
watch, if you really want to treat yourself to some good, um, some good humor,
Mm-hmm.
just go out to a restaurant. I find it either on a full moon night, and
Yeah.
I'm not kidding,
It's
or
always.
or Sundays for some reason,
Yeah.
crazies come out,
Yeah.
and you just, I mean, you know me now. I try to be patient, but
Mm-hmm.
when if I come up to your table and I say, I have good news and I have bad news.
Yeah.
Do
We
you
know
know
it's coming.
the good news
The good
is
news is,
everything's on the house
yeah,
tonight.
exactly.
The bad news is you're banned from ever coming into any Bronx House Pizza ever
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
You had some experience on the front of the house too.
Yeah.
Remember, you were in college and you did work the front of the house. You were a waiter for a while.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I had to. Yeah, I was a waiter
So he's got an
Of course.
experience, kitchen, pizza,
because
front of the house.
front of the house actually makes more money than back of the house. Back
Mhm.
of the house is just this unforgiving. It's more of a labor of love,
It
right?
is, yeah.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
have to enjoy what you're doing back there
Yeah.
to keep doing it.
Yeah, nothing's really easy, but yeah, we on one of these next podcasts we're gonna have to share a couple of the crazy stories of customers and requests that we get, and because there are just like so many incredible mouth dropping items.
Oh, yeah.
That, yeah,
You hear some of them where I'm just like, that's the first.
yeah.
I've been doing it a long time.
Yeah,
That's
and
the
not
first
only
time I've
that,
heard that one.
a special shout out to the person that left us 1 star on Google because the parking lot was too busy
Oh,
and
yeah.
he gave up finding a spot, so he just shit on us because he never even came in the restaurant.
No,
But
no, yeah.
yeah, so
You gotta
like,
always love those ones.
oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
That's absolutely
Um,
fantastic. But
Or the
you-
ones that like, get upset when you try to do fundraisers to help people.
oh my god, oh we should, yeah, let's touch on that real quick. So what do I have? You gave me the
Oh,
shirt
so,
last
yeah,
night,
yeah,
right?
Yep. Yeah.
So people actually, Bronx House has become famous for its affiliation with Rob Van Winkle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you started our relationship with Rob.
Mm.
I remember you texted me. You're like, I'm pretty sure Vanilla Ice is here
Yeah.
in the restaurant.
Yeah.
That was what, 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago, yeah.
And you were really gracious. You grabbed his kids, brought them behind the counter, made
Mhm.
pizza,
Yep.
and that's now you guys are forever besties.
Yeah.
But we had this great idea to team up with him because Bronx House Pizza does a lot of philanthropy.
Yeah, yeah.
And, yeah,
I
nobody
met-
could question any of the the giving that we do and
Yeah.
the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we've foregone
Yeah.
in profit
For sure.
to help people. But just tell me, give me a little bit of a rundown on what we did and what we're doing.
Yeah, so I mean, Rob came in while he was filming his show because he had purchased a house down the street and was flipping it for his TV show, the Vanilla Ice Beach Project. And he came in the restaurant. That's when I texted Bruno. I'm like, I'm pretty sure Vanilla Ice. And it was funny because the reason why I knew was because I was sitting behind the pizza station with Jordan. We're making pies, and all of a sudden I look, and this guy whips in this F350, huge rims, and he like double parks. I'm like, who is this guy? Thinks he is double parking? And I was literally about to walk out and be like, hey man, you can't park like that. And I look at Jordan. I go, pretty sure that's Vanilla Ice. And he goes, what? I said, I'm pretty sure. So I texted Bruno, and sure enough, it was. And, he had some kids with him. They were working on the house. They had their film crew. So I just said to the kid, hey, you guys want to come make a couple pizzas? And yeah, absolutely, And Rob thought that was really cool. And they were like, can we film it for the show? I said, yeah, absolutely. So they were filming. Him and I just started talking and hitting it off. And he started coming in like almost once a week, I'd say, for that whole summer as he was doing the show. And, him and I became friends and started staying in contact with each other. So one day I was at his new house, and he was asking about the whole Bronx House thing and how it got started. I was telling him about you and Mike, and he's like, I've seen some things that you guys do charity work and and done fundraisers and stuff. So we were just talking. I asked him, I said, what's your favorite charity? What do you really like? And he told me about Little Smiles, and he's like, it's it's in Florida. He's like nonprofit, but he's like, it helps terminally ill kids, so these kids have no chance of survival. It allows us to be able to raise money and be able to help them, just smile for a day, so they throw on different things for them to be able to have.
That's pretty cool.
So
They're terminally ill.
yeah, exactly. They're terminally ill. So you, Mike started talking about what could we do? We felt compelled to do something. So came up with the idea to do 100% of sales, not proceeds, 100% of sales. We're just going to give to Little Smiles. So we did that on a Sunday. We were open 8 hours. We wanted to raise 30,000. We raised 86,000.
Wow, yeah.
Gave it all to them.
And it stayed local.
Yep, stayed local. They used it at the Halifax Hospital in Daytona for their pediatrics unit. So
yeah,
now we want to keep it an annual
yeah.
thing. So we weren't able to do it in February this year because of some permit issues. But I talked to Rob the other day, so we are shooting for the fall. I just got to send him some dates.
Yep.
So we are going to be doing it again in the fall.
So as long as we have a 90-day lead,
Yep.
the city will stand behind us.
Yep.
Even though some of our neighbors behind Bronx House haven't really been that supportive.
Right,
It's a one-day event. And
right.
this time we're trying to raise $200K.
Yeah.
We're pretty confident we
Yeah.
can get there.
Yeah.
And that's going to stay local.
Yep.
And Brad, I kind of think it's not even for. Well, it is for the terminally ill child, but think about the parents.
It's the parent, exactly.
And
It is.
years from now,
Yeah.
after they lose their child,
Mhm.
they're going to proudly be able to say, wow, we were able to take our child to Disney, or we were able to do a helicopter ride, or
When we did last year's event, we had a family that drove here 10 hours because their son was a diehard fan of Rob. They drove 10 hours here.
Wow.
Little Smiles put him up in a hotel, sent him to Disney. I mean, we gave him, he got to meet Rob. I mean, everything.
That's significant money.
And those parents were so happy because they said, we haven't seen our son this happy in a long time.
And they are going to lose their son,
Yeah.
and they'll be able to look back.
Yeah.
And that's for them.
Yeah,
They're going to
those are
carry that for
memories,
the
yeah,
next 30
absolutely,
or 40
yeah.
years, you know, and that's all they're going to
Yeah.
have. So, yeah. So for those of you who were wondering, we are going to
Yeah,
do
we're
it.
still
It
doing
will
it,
be
yep.
an annual thing.
Yep.
We're not
not
giving
letting it
up
stop
on it.
us,
Rob's
yeah.
not giving up. Rob
No.
was ready to come and fight
He was,
for,
yeah.
for
was,
it,
Yeah. And
which
so
was pretty
Little
cool.
Smiles, yeah.
So that's cool. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think, yeah, I'd love to have you on the show semi regularly, Brad.
Yeah.
So we'll do it.
We'll
Dad,
get
thanks.
Rob out here too.
Yes,
Too.
that would be really
Yeah.
great if we could. Dad, thanks for coming down to visit me from Italy. My dad's leaving tomorrow, and
Yes.
yeah,
You're welcome.
thank
for
you.
having us.
All right, all
By
right,
the way,
guys.
you're doing a fantastic job.
Oh,
yes.
thank you,
you are.
Dad. Oh, my dad's
Yeah.
proud of me. Woo!
No,
You
you
just
do.
filled-
I mean,
He filled my gas tank.
one of the best organization around when it comes to pizza
Thanks, Dad.
restaurants.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, guys.
All right, brother. Love you, bud.
Love you too, buddy.
Okay.